On Mother's Day, my son, a young, wealthy, and busy businessman, came to visit me, holding a bouquet as bright as the morning Sunday. He set the flowers down gently, but nothing in his face was gentle. His voice carried that distant politeness people use when they're checking on an elderly neighbor, not their own mother. "Mom," he said, "my wife still sends you the $5,000 every month, right? I just want to make sure you're comfortable." It felt like someone had knocked the air right out of my chest. I gripped the edge of the table to keep my hands from shaking. "Son, the church is helping me get by." My voice cracked. "There's been no money?" His brows snapped together in confusion, but before he could speak, she showed up. Clara, silk dress whispering behind her, heels tapping like she owned the ground. Perfume thick enough to smother the truth. "Mother," she cooed, "you must have forgotten, I come every month." I looked at her calmly, the way a hawk watches a mouse pretending it's a lion. "If you brought it," I whispered, "then I suppose it evaporated." A tiny twitch at the corner of her mouth. A blink too slow, a breath too sharp, cracks, beautiful glittering cracks. David watched us, his gaze flicking between my worn apron and Clara's polished perfection. Confusion, then embarrassment, he didn't know where to place his loyalty. "Clara," he asked quietly, "you've been bringing it, right?" She placed a hand on his shoulder as if claiming ownership. "Of course, darling. She's just older." That word hung in the air, foul as spoiled milk. Older, not old, older, as if my age made me blind, deaf, stupid. I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. Silence can be sharper than a knife. Her heels clicked across my floor like insults as she walked around, pretending to admire my old photos, pretending everything about my life was quaint and fragile. "You keep the house very clean, Mother," she said with a smile that carried a slap inside it. "Impressive at your age," I responded with a thin smile. "Age makes the eyes sharper, dear. Especially for things people think they've hidden." She froze for half a second. David didn't notice, not yet. Husbands never notice the moment their wives slip. Later, after they left, I sat in the quiet. $40,000 that never came. Months of canned food and church meals. Months of lies served to my face with sugar on top. I opened my old notebook, the one I used to write grocery lists in. But this time I wrote, "Find the truth, don't warn her, watch." My hands steadied with each stroke of the pen. People think old age makes you weak. They forget it also gives you time. Time to listen, time to notice, time to plan. And as I closed the notebook, a cold little truth settled inside me. Clara thought she'd fooled me. She didn't realize she'd just woken up the wrong old woman. I didn't confront her. Not yet. You don't slap a snake, you let it coil until it traps itself. The next morning, I walked to the bank with my old purse pressed against my ribs. The young teller typed on her keyboard, her bracelets jingling like tiny alarms. She looked up at me with polite pity. "Mrs. Hayes, there are no transfers, not one, not even a failed attempt." I nodded, not surprised, not shaken, just colder. Outside, the wind pushed against me like someone trying to warn me, but I didn't need warnings anymore. I needed evidence. Back home, I pulled out an old notebook, the brown one David gave me on my 60th birthday, telling me to write happy things. Funny. Now it would hold nothing except the anatomy of deceit. I started with dates, visits, excuses, gifts Clara brought with her perfect fake smile. June, lavender, no envelope, lie. July, said bank delay. Restaurant noise in background. August, new Mercedes, sweat on her upper lip. Patterns, perfect patterns. Later that week, Clara arrived again, stepping out of a shiny new Lexus. The kind of car you buy when you're very bold or very guilty. "Mother," she called out cheerfully, holding a basket full of overpriced cookies and a bottle of wine. "A little something for you?" I stared at the Lexus. "That new?" I asked. "Just a small upgrade," she said, waving it off. "My boutique clients expect a certain image." I murmured. "Strange how you can afford new cars when you keep forgetting envelopes." Her smile froze. Her eyes flicked just for a second, caught. "Oh," she said lightly, "I left it in the car. Silly me." "Silly indeed," I answered, watching her tighten her grip on the basket like it might hide her lies. We sat on my porch. I offered her tea. She didn't drink it. Guilty people rarely do. They're too busy swallowing fear. "Your garden is lovely," she said, looking anywhere but my eyes. "With these old hands," I replied. "Old but steady." A pause. "Steady enough to remember when someone hasn't given me a single dollar." Her breath hitched, so small you'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. But I was. I've been watching her for 8 months. She stood abruptly. I have to go. Busy day, of course, running from truth is exhausting. She rushed to her Lexus, didn't look back, didn't smile, didn't pretend. I wrote the moment down. September 10, nervous, lied, new car. Envelope never left her imagination. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called David's company. The head accountant answered. A calm, older man with a weary voice. Yes, he said after checking. Your son sends $5,000 every month, but the account receiving it isn't yours. A dead chill sank into my bones. Someone opened an account using my name. Someone who had access to my documents. Someone who wore Chanel perfume like armor and lies like silk. That night I closed the notebook and whispered to my empty kitchen, she forged my name, she thinks I'm blind, she's wrong. I didn't call her, I didn't warn her. I didn't even let my voice tremble. Snakes don't get warnings, they get cages. 3 days later, with the truth coiled tightly in my notebook, I invited David and Clara to dinner. A warm, friendly, motherly dinner. The kind only a fool would think was harmless. I cooked his favorites, honey-roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, cinnamon apples. The smell alone could break a man's heart open. When they arrived, David hugged me tight. Clara air-kissed my cheek, her fake sweetness sticking to my skin like cheap perfume. Mother, she sang, this looks lovely. I smiled with the softness of a loaded gun. We sat, we ate, we pretended. Halfway through the meal, I cleared my throat lightly. I'm so grateful for this month's $5,000, I said, just loud enough to be casual. Clara didn't miss a beat. Of course, Mother, she said. David and I never forget. Her confidence was her stupidity. Her calmness was her downfall. Her smile was a noose tightening around her own neck. I lifted my glass. I'm curious, I said. What did you usually send it? She answered instantly, too instantly. The 10th, Mother, David blinked. No, he said slowly, I set the automatic transfer for the 15th. Silence. The type that slices through skin. Clara's fork slipped from her fingers and clattered against her plate. She tried to laugh, thin, brittle. Right, the 15th, dear, I just forgot. Mother gets it on the 10th because she was drowning, and I let her. I took another sip of water, watching her like a woman watching a building catch fire. Well, I said, I'll go to the bank on the 15th just to make sure the system's working. Her jaw tightened. She didn't smile this time. After dessert, I watched her hands shake as she gathered her purse. Not much. Just enough for me to enjoy the view. At the door, I touched her arm gently. You look pale, Clara. Everything all right? She forced a smile so tight it could have cracked her teeth. Of course, Mother. She practically ran to the car. As the tail lights disappeared, I returned to the kitchen, wiped the counter slowly, and whispered, hook, line, sinker. That night I emailed the head accountant. No hesitation, no fear. If I bring my son on the 15th, I asked him, can you show him everything? He replied almost instantly, yes, he needs to see it with his own eyes. I closed my laptop, my heartbeat slowing. For the first time in 8 months, I felt the soil shift beneath the lies. Like something rotten had finally cracked open. Clara thought she was clever. She thought age made me slow. She thought motherhood made me blind. She forgot something important. Mothers don't lose their memories, they just collect evidence. The 15th arrived with a sky so clear it felt sarcastic. I dressed simply, clean blouse, neat hair, nothing dramatic. Truth doesn't need costumes. David drove. Clara sat beside him, stiff as a mannequin, her nails drumming her thigh like tiny warning bells. She didn't look at me once. When we entered the bank, the air conditioning hit us like cold judgment. The head accountant, Mr. Bennett, was already waiting, calm, composed, holding a folder thick enough to bury someone. David greeted him respectfully. Clara didn't greet anyone. Her eyes darted everywhere except at the folder. Mr. Hayes, Bennett said, shall we sit? We did. I watched Clara swallow hard. The sound was loud in my memory, even if she'd deny it later. Bennett opened the folder. These are the transfers you authorized, he said to David. $5,000 every month, sent to an account under the name Margaret Hayes. He tapped the document. Except this account isn't actually hers. David frowned. What do you mean it has her name? Clara shifted. Bennett turned the page. This account was opened with forged identification. The handwriting matches your wife's signature. Clara jerked her head up, eyes flaming. That's a lie, but guilt makes voices too high, too sharp, the innocent sound confused, the guilty sound inconvenienced. Bennett didn't blink. We verified with the issuing office. These documents were tampered with. David looked at Clara. For the first time, really looked. She stuttered, reaching for him. David, listen, I just handled the paperwork because you're busy, Bennett continued calmly. Also included are statements from the secondary card you gave her. Spa trips, jewelry, hotel reservations, a vehicle deposit for a new Lexus. He slid a photo forward. The same one parked in your driveway. Clara snatched the paper, crumpling it. Are you serious? Are we really doing this? She shouted. I did everything for this family. Your mother barely survives without help. I cut her off quietly. You never helped me, not once. She spun toward me. You expect me to believe your memory? You're almost 70? I smiled gently, peacefully, like a woman watching a thief choke on her own lies. Yes, dear. And I'm old enough to write everything you've ever said to me. I pulled out my notebook. Every visit, every excuse, every lie. David took the notebook, hands shaking. He flipped pages, his face draining, his jaw tightening, his heart cracking. Clara, he whispered. You lied to my mother, you stole from me, from us. Clara froze, her mouth opened, no sound came out. There it was. The moment the mask fell and shattered at her feet, I could have screamed. I could have gloated. Instead, I whispered, I didn't take anything from you, Clara, you took it from yourself. She stood, trembling with fury, shame, fear, whatever cocktail her conscience could still mix. She stormed out of the bank, heels hitting the floor like desperate gunshots. David just sat there, silent, broken. And for the first time in a long while, he finally understood who had truly loved him. Clara didn't come home that night. David told me later she didn't answer calls, didn't text, didn't leave a note, just disappeared into the dark like a guilty shadow running from its own shape. I didn't ask where she went. Liars always find somewhere to hide until the truth hunts them down again. David stayed silent for 2 days, not angry, not crying, just hollow, like someone had scooped his insides out and left only the shell of a proud man who finally saw the cracks he'd been refusing to look at. On the third evening, the sky split open with rain, hammering the roof like a warning from heaven. I was making tea when a violent pounding shook my door. David. Soaked, shaking, drenched to the bone. The kind of soaking that makes a man look like his life fell apart in the storm. He stepped inside, water dripping from his hair onto my kitchen floor. Mom, he whispered. His voice cracked like something splitting inside him. She robbed me, she took everything that was left and ran. He collapsed into a chair, elbows on the table, grabbing his hair with both hands. I was blind. God, I was so blind. I placed a towel around his shoulders, the way I used to when he was little, and came home crying because another boy pushed him in the mud. You trusted your wife, I said quietly. That's not blindness, that's love. He laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Love, she used my money to buy flights with some man she was seeing before we married. She emptied the joint savings. She cleaned out the emergency fund. He choked. I feel like a damn fool, Mom. I rested my hand on his. No, I said, a fool never learns, you learned. He looked at me then, not as a child to a mother, not as a son seeking comfort, but as a man who had finally woken up. I should have listened to you, he said. All those months you were starving while I thought I was helping. You weren't helping, I said softly. You were trusting the wrong person, there's a difference. The rain battered the windows harder. David looked toward the sound as if expecting Clara to walk out of it. She didn't, she never would. She's gone for good, he whispered. Yes, I said, and that's the first good thing she's done for you. He let out a breath he'd been holding for months. Maybe years. We sat together in the quiet, listening to the rain wash away the last of his illusions. For once, there was no anger between us, no guilt, no shame, only truth, cold, clean, undeniable. When the storm finally softened, he looked up. Mom, he said, voice steadier, can I help you? Not with money, with anything, with everything. I want to learn what I ignored. I want to be better than this. I squeezed his hand. You already started, I said. You came home. He nodded. And for the first time in 8 months, he smiled, small, real, tired, but alive. Clara had stolen money. She had stolen pride. But she had also given something back without meaning to. She had given me my son, and that was worth every storm.